Hey there guys, Scott Schultz with PassMasters with another question of the day to help you prepare to pass your real estate licensing exam on your first attempt. Let's take a look. Once personal property is physically attached to real property, it becomes known as what? So you had two different types of property for your exam. You had real property and personal property. Can personal property become real property? Yes, if it's attached. So it's immovable. It becomes what? That's what we're looking for in the answer here. Does it become an attachment? No, that term may have thrown you off because it's in the question. And when you see that, maybe you want to pick it, but you'd be wrong. The term attachment is a legal term in relation to real estate, so it has nothing to do with this situation. Let's look at our next answer. Fixture. Well, that looks good because by definition, a fixture is what? It's personal property that is permanently attached and becomes real property. That's what a fixture is by definition. So we think that's looking really good as our answer, but we got to look at all of them. There might be a better one. Next one, emblement. What's an emblement? An emblement is crops that have been planted and will be harvested. Emblements are always considered personal property. So that's not a good one. Let's look at another answer. Trade fixture. Well, a trade fixture is when somebody installs something for business use. That's whenever you would see a question that talks about somebody's operating a business and they permanently install something that they're going to be using in their business, that's a trade fixture. Here in this question, we're talking about personal use. We're talking about personal property. So trade fixture's out. So we think the correct answer here is fixture, and let's take a look and see. And it is. All right, so let's go ahead. Hopefully you got that right. Go on and look at the explanation. So we see here in the explanation, it says, once personal property is permanently attached to real property, it becomes a fixture and is considered real property, as we know. Upon the transfer of ownership of real estate, fixtures will transfer from the seller to the buyer. Very important here. You need to understand this when you get licensed, because the people that you're representing, whether it's the buyer or seller, they're going to want to know what they get when they buy or what they're selling when they're selling. So the next paragraph says, as you can imagine, what is considered to be a fixture has been a contentious issue for buyers and sellers. Obviously. So much so, though, that the courts have come up with 5 tests which they apply to property to determine whether it is in fact a fixture. Now, here's a tip for your exam. You can remember these 5 tests that the courts apply to determine whether property is considered a fixture or not with this acronym MARIA, M-A-R-I-A, which starts with the method of attachment, also known as annexation. Was it permanently attached? Can it be removed without causing damage? So that's one of the tests they apply. 2, adaptation to real estate. Is it custom made for the property? They give keys as an example here. Now, keys you would think are personal property, but it's not. It's real property. Why? Because the key was specifically made for that property. You can't use that key anywhere else. Relationship to the parties. Emblements are considered personal property, which I already mentioned, but we'll see further in this explanation, but can belong to the seller or buyer depending on what they negotiate. And that's a very important point. You can negotiate to purchase personal property, can't you, when you're buying a property? Yes. Where does it have to be specified? In the purchase contract or agreement. Going further, the I in Maria, intention. Did the owner intend for it to be permanent or not? And this is the most important test in the court's eyes. Agreement. What does the sales contract say? As I just mentioned, you could buy personal property if you want to, but you have to specify it and you have to list it in the purchase agreement. Now, going further on with this explanation here, trade fixtures, as we said, relate to business use of the property of a tenant. Trade fixtures are similar in that they are permanently installed by the tenant, but are different in that they always remain the personal property of the tenant. So where a fixture, if you live in your house and you install personal property in the house as a fixture, it becomes real property. Under business use, if you're a tenant and you install something, it becomes a trade fixture and it's still your personal property. So it goes on to say trade fixtures can be removed by the tenant prior to lease expiration, but if they're left behind, they become the property of the landlord. True. So you need to know that for your exam. Also need to know if the tenant's going to remove the trade fixtures, any damage they cause while doing so would be at their expense. It would have to be repaired by the tenant. The last thing to mention here, as mentioned earlier, emblements, crops require annual planting are considered to be personal property, not real property. Conversely, naturally growing plants and trees are classified as real property. Of course, they stay with the property. Now say that, to kind of round this out here, you have a client who they have a prized bush, or say it was a tree. Okay, like their grandmother planted this tree 100 years ago, and when she died, they dug it up and they planted it in their backyard, and they want to take it with them when they move. Is that tree real property or personal property? Real property when it's planted in the backyard. If they want to take it with them, they better dig that sucker up and make sure it's out of the way and move it, or make sure that it's listed in the purchase contract that they're going to dig it up and move it with them, because it would be considered real property and the buyer is going to get that. So you can see how these things, yeah, they're legal and everything, but they are very important for real life, and they're very important for your exam so that you can get the question right, get your license, and become a power superstar real estate agent. And that's about all we have for this question of the day. Thanks for viewing in. Follow our channel here. We'll be posting more as we go along, and also visit our site. We have a bunch of free learning tools and excellent training course that you can utilize to help you understand these concepts even further.